Hello and welcome. That's the craziest water bottle plug. Sorry, that threw me off.
Shameless plug.
Hello and welcome
Shameless
to
plug.
another episode of the Boot Nerds podcast. JayMike, how's it going?
I'm doing good, my man. Thank you. Can't complain. Boots coming in thick and fast. You know, football season is back underway. Let's not talk about Man United, but hey, it is what it is. We're used to it. But as you would normally say, I cannot complain. How are you?
I cannot complain. No, it's been a good summer in general. Pretty happy with it.
Okay,
so,
that's
and
good.
in terms of football boots, there is probably more to talk about this year than we've had in basically since we started doing the podcast, which is kind of a shame that we slowed down as much as we have. But
that's my fault.
We're back
That's
now.
my fault. But you're right, and I know it's a little bit of a cliche. We keep saying it every year, but my God, have boots just the quality just keeps improving, and I think overall the market is stronger than it has ever been because obviously the big brands are doing pretty well. You could argue that a couple of years ago they were also doing pretty well, but it's just like the rise of the smaller brands and the quality of the smaller brands is so good these days. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk obviously this one that we've both had a look at, the Sokito Scudetta. But it also is going to lead us potentially down the rabbit hole of like talking speed boots, and also whether we are kind of going back to where we were 10 years ago with football boot technology, just refined. And then a little bit of another throwback at the end. So, Josh, where do you want to start? Like Scudetta?
Yeah, let's talk Scudetta because I think it's like as far as achievement is concerned in creating a brand new football boot from a brand that effectively is brand new. I don't think it's ever been done to this level of success, which is just super impressive. Like we've seen the brand that I like to make comparisons to when it comes to how hard it actually is to make a pair of football boots is Under Armour.
Yeah.
That's a brand that has all the resources they could possibly need, all the tech that's in-house that they could possibly need. Yeah. And while they have had some great boots over the years,
sure,
it's very clear, especially with the recent stuff, that it's just hard to make something that is good.
Yeah. And that is also commercial, that people want to buy. Which is also tricky. And I mean, we even saw it with Skechers that have a lot of very, very knowledgeable people that they may or may not have gotten in from other brands that clearly know what they're doing. And even then, just for the fact that they were Skechers, it's been a really, really long way for them to actually build up the credibility around their football boots, which are, to be fair, very, very good, right? And that's probably also going to be like, if you're watching this episode, you've probably also watched our reviews on the Scudetta. Is it unfair to say that we both agree that it's a really good football boot? I know you're a little bit more,
I think you'd agree with me in saying that there's nothing about the Scudetta that feels like you're leaving anything on the table when it comes to fit, feel, comfort, performance, compared to just about any top-end model, speed boot or not. Like it does not feel like you are...
It doesn't feel out of place,
because it's not Nike, Adidas, or Puma that you're getting less.
Exactly. I think that's a good way of putting it. And for 200 euros, for me, that's really impressive. I mean, we're talking Mizuno Elite price point level. And I think, at least from my point of view, the experience you get, the quality is good. The build quality is good. The experience you get with the fit, the touch, and the overall experience is up there with the Mizuno Elite boots. You could probably argue that I'd still say those are slightly more refined in the way that they're built. But I think I would be just as happy putting these on as a pair of Alpha Elites, which is high praise for me because the Alpha is one of my, it's got to be ranking high on my all-time favorite list of boots. I love the Sokitos, but that's also because and we both said this, it feels like the reincarnation of the 2014 F50 Adizero. I mean, there are so many elements there, right?
It's the thing about football boots, especially new boots now, is it's very difficult to do something that has not been done before. And I think the big complaint everybody has, especially from the big brands, when the new stuff comes out is like, oh, there's nothing actually new here. We just changed the design a little bit, the styling, and they up the price, and we're recycling the same thing over and over again. I think when you talk about football boot innovation, the last time we really saw a lot of unique product was actually in 2014. And obviously in that 10-year time frame, football boots have gone in quite a few different directions. So the fact that Sokito was able to effectively bottle what was so great about the 2014 F50 Adizero, which to a lot of people is one of the greatest speed boots of all time, and give us something that is so similar in terms of its feel characteristics, I think is really, really impressive, especially at, again, a price point that is definitely not cheap. I will never make the argument that $200 is inexpensive for a pair of shoes, period. Football boots or not. That's a lot of money to spend on something like this.
That's a fair point. I've definitely been, this industry has broken me. And I think, the fact that we were really hammering hard for like the €200 price point. And I was like, you have to do this. It has to be cheap. Value for money wise, at least, right? And that's where, the industry has truly broken me. I've seen so many expensive football boots over the years, €350 for a pair of Adidas Predator Mania remakes and stuff like that. It's been ridiculous. So for me, €200, but I get what you're saying. It's not cheap. And when I say, cheap boots and I talk about €160 in the Unisport videos, I get a lot of stick for it. So fair enough. But it's cheaper.
Yeah. Cheaper, and it kind of falls into almost this like it's not a mid-level, it's like a mid-high price point, because if you think about your elite models from Nike and Adidas, now you're between $260 and $300 effectively, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're talking about your mid-level stuff, like if you want a pair of Vapor 16 Pros, great boots, but already $160 bucks? That's a lot of money, right? So you're really talking about the Sokitos and effectively the elite offerings from Mizuno in that kind of $200 price point, where I really do think for the extra $40 over a mid-level Nike takedown model, the quality exceeds that. And for the $60 less that you'd pay for a high-end Nike top-end model, I think the quality is matched. So
yes,
they've done something really good in that regard in terms of value for money, where if that's just your number one concern, the best performance and feel that you can get for the least amount of money possible, I mean, it's hard to argue against Scudetta.
Exactly. And let's also not beat around the bush here. Is the Scudetta perfect? No, it's not. No. There are some things that definitely could be better. And that's fair, but that's also what you're going to get, obviously, with a brand that's made of, this is not their first football boot. They also have the Devista, but this is a different league, right? This is like, for me, their first really top-end model. And I think it's not going to be perfect, and especially it's also not going to be for everyone, because it is significantly different from most of the other speed boots that we see out there that are knit or textile-based in the uppers, and this is not. That's also what I like so much about it, is that it takes us back to what I feel is one of the best speed boots ever, but with some improvements that, I always say that it's a mixture between an F50 Adizero and a Neo heel. And it just gives me, the best of both worlds. And since for me it also performs, I love the tight fit, the responsiveness you get in the sole, good lockdown, great heel lock-in. It's just such a good package, which I understand, again, it won't be for everyone, especially the tighter fit. But if it is something you're specifically after, disregarding the price, I think it's right up there among the best for me, especially also, and we're going to get into that in a second as well, but especially also because the speed boot market now also has some boots that have trended a little bit more towards, I would say, the slightly more general appeal, a little bit more towards the middle. Would you agree? Like the Vapors, the F50s that are slightly more, generally appealing.
Yeah, they've done a good job, and I think a lot of that has to do with the cosmetics. It's again very tough when you don't have 3 stripes or a swoosh to make something that people deem to be attractive. Again, looks are completely subjective when you're talking about anything, but I happen 100%. To think this is a pretty good looking pair of football boots.
It's not ugly.
I like their logo. I like the design. It's fairly basic. I could do without the script on the heel there.
Same.
The list of ingredients, if you will.
Yeah.
I'm not really my cup of tea, but
I agree.
It's subtle enough to where it doesn't matter. I think where, and I've seen comments rumbling regarding what I've said as well as what you've said, where it seems overly positive. And I think the positivity comes similar to a made in Japan Mizuno product, where this is a football boot that was designed by people that just get it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
The little details that they've incorporated not only feel great, but I think have made a football boot that tries to appeal to people that know about football boots. And where I think if you look at a lot of the big brands right now, Nike is especially a huge culprit, let's say, of putting out gimmicky things that might appeal to the general consumer. But when it comes to the reality of like what actually matters in a pair of football boots, it doesn't matter. Where everything on this boot feels like it was there for a reason.
Yeah. It's purposeful. That's a good way of putting it, right?
Yeah.
And again, yes, you know, on I've seen the same comments as you. Someone said that they almost fell for my promotional video on the boot, and you know, that's just the game of being excited about stuff these days. I mean, and that's the internet, right? That's reviews. You're always looking for what's like the counter argument to make this believable. And it's funny that if I watch tech reviews myself, I'm always like, okay, sounds good, but what's the catch? You always expect the negatives, right? There's a price to credibility. And it's funny. So when you're dealing with a product, and especially, I can't speak for you, but for me, when I'm dealing with a product that I really like personally, and that I also think objectively has a lot going for it, it's always tough to balance it out and be as credible as possible, if you know what I mean. Because you always know that by being positive, it pushes people a little bit back. You know, is it a bit sus? Is it overly it's a funny thing, right?
Criticism is tough. I actually had a little discussion about this in the comment section of my review. It's something I think about a lot because it's something we've both been doing for a long time.
Right.
When you give an opinion on a pair of football boots, you have to be 100% certain in what you're sharing, because there's going to be a lot of people that watch only your video and take your word, which is great, but you can absolutely misinform people by giving the wrong opinion. So
100%,
I think when you're talking about a Scudetta-like product where it's completely out of nowhere and nobody knows anything about it, I think the automatic assumption when it comes to a brand new football boot nobody heard of before is that it's going to be mediocre at best, if not bad. Yeah. And there's very little about this football boot that I can say is genuinely bad, which means that the general tone of a review is that it's going to be fairly positive.
Yeah.
Right? Like you said, 20 minutes ago, they're not perfect. No football boot truly is. There's little things about these that I would change. And do those little things add up to something that maybe would turn you in a different direction as far as picking something else? Possibly.
Maybe.
But I think it's very important in a review to be appropriately critical when it comes to elements that everybody is going to experience the same way. Right? It would be wrong for me, being somebody that tends to prefer leather boots with a little bit more padded upper, to put on a pair of Mercurials, and because I'm not a big fan of thin boots, say, they're crap.
Hate them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But exactly, that's like the balance, right? You got to be subjective, but you also have to explain why you think something is either good or bad. And that's, the subjectiveness can always be a problem because sometimes people won't believe it. It's a tricky one. I still love doing it because of that. There's so many opinions, right? And I said to you before shooting this that I was certain that this was going to be one of the boots that we would agree on because I know you love the 2014 Adizero as well. But there are these nuances, and that's also why it's so good to have lots of reviews out there. More opinions, to be as informed as possible and find out, okay, who do I agree with? Who am I looking for the same things as? And get the nuances. I think that's a good thing. But anyways, discussing reviews and all the meta stuff really. This also led to an interesting thing. I did a top 5 best speed boots of 2024 video. I placed this second, which some people took offense in. And I just wanted to kind of get your take on the speed boot market right now. I know that as this video is going up, your speed boot tier list will have also dropped. So
yeah, it should be up before this goes up.
What's the landscape here?
If we're ranking 1 through 5 like you've done,
sure.
I can't say that I have Scudetta at 2.
That's fair.
I think it's a very good football boot.
That's fair.
But personally, I wouldn't have it at 2.
Cool.
Having just explained that personal opinion and preference shouldn't necessarily be the main deciding factor. For me, number 1 is still the Messi F50, which is such a shame because the availability of this boot sucks.
As a speed boot in general.
I love this boot. This
fair.
To
Me too.
I love it. It's If you're talking about a speed boot for me to go and play in right now, this is the one that I'm picking.
Look, that's fair. I love this.
Yeah. I think if we're talking about what I think makes a speed boot feel like a speed boot, I still have a hard time not picking a Mercurial. I just think what Nike has in the Vapor as well as the Superfly, it's all the tech. It's as hardcore as possible. It's responsive. It's aggressive.
Light, yeah.
It's one of the lightest speed boots on the market. It's a tough one to beat. The one caveat of that football boot is the grip knit upper, which may or may not be for everybody. And that's something I've said from the very beginning.
I agree.
There's going to be plenty of people, for as good as I think this boot is, there's going to be plenty of people that absolutely hate it because of that extra grip.
Where the Pro is phenomenal because you don't get the Zoomer pod, which not everyone will like either, and you don't have grip knit. It's just like basically a Superfly 4 type of feel. But yeah, fair point. Mercs also have to be there. The reason, and if I can just jump in and say the reason, I have these in 5th, which was a really, really tough decision because as a boot, I love the Messis as well. I think we're very much on the same page here. But I just felt that as a speed boot, what I really, really rate in a speed boot is obviously the tight fit, the light sensation, that very nimble feel, but also responsiveness. That means the snap, which is solid in this one, but also the stop pattern and how much bite I feel I get. And with the F50s in general, the Messis and the Elite, I just don't feel it's quite on the same level as the Vapors, the Ultras, the Sokitos, and the Alphas, and the Razer for that matter, and the Furons. I just like them so much that I felt, they had to be in because, like you say, if I'm going out tomorrow, I'm bringing these.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of an anomaly boot in the market right now.
Yeah.
There's not the closest thing to it would actually be the Scudetta, I'd say.
Yes, I agree.
Would probably be the best comparison, but it's not the same.
And if you take the outsole from the Crazy Fast and slap it on that one, I think we would be it would be unfair to a lot of the other brands because that would be so intense, so powerful with that snapback. Ooh, see, that's what I wanted. I just don't feel the outsole on the F50 is up to par with the rest of the upper on either the regular Elite and the Messis, and that's a shame. On the Mercs, I just feel, without the Zoomer unit, might be a little, and the snapback is not, I talked about it in my review as well, the snapback is not where I want it to be for a Merc. Again, it could be, and I know it's probably done to make it more generally appealing, but it's not as hardcore as I want the Mercurial to be. Stop pattern, great, phenomenal, all that stuff. And the lockdown could be a little bit better in the Merc.
They definitely dialed it back a little bit. The upper's way softer this time around than it's been in the last couple generations. And just to not contradict myself, because I know there's probably people already screaming in the comments, because I have technically ranked the Puma Ultra 5 Ultimate as the best speed boot of the year.
Yeah.
And I think, again, when you're talking about like what characteristics make a speed boot, that to me is everything you could possibly want for the most part. At a price tag that is, again, less than what you'll find from an F50 or a Mercurial.
Exactly.
$230 for that is quite the deal, I would say.
Yeah. And exactly that. For me, this does everything the Merc does, but with a snappier outsole, as aggressive stock configuration and better lockdown in the upper. Yeah. And it's cheaper. So what's not to like? I mean, I would probably still personally prefer the Mercurial also because the fit is a little bit better for me. I still have some weird sizing issues with which is odd. So, if we're talking boots on a general, what would I put in my bag? I'd probably still go for the Mercurial, but I think that objectively speaking, what I'm looking for in a speed boot, the Ultras are better if you get where I'm going.
Yeah. No, and that, again, kind of circles back to giving an opinion when you're reviewing a product where if you've been a Mercurial guy for a long time, and you like how that feels, go Mercurial.
Yeah.
If you're looking to try something different, I think the Puma Ultra is a great option. Yeah. But it's not necessarily going to be for everybody.
Right. So on your list, you now have the Messis, the Mercs, and the Ultras. What completes the top 5 then? Because I'm
okay. So this is where I get a little bit. It gets cloudy for me because I think Mizuno, made in Japan Mizuno, whether it's the Alpha or the Neo 4, I'm personally a non-beta person, but the beta is also fantastic. Yes. It's hard for me to not include both of those boots.
Right, that's fair. I've had the same thoughts on my list and was like, I have to include the Neos because it's one of, in my opinion, the best boots on the market as a whole, and it's lightweight. It feels very, the fit is tight. It's good. It's a ballet shoe, right? Mm-hmm. I just, conical studs. I mean, give it anything but conical studs, please. And it's unfair. That's what we're talking.
I like that about that boot.
Yeah, again, but
to me, the Neo, similar to the Messi, it's kind of that anomaly product where, as once upon a time in the days of leather F50s. You had that alternative.
Yeah.
Now you really don't. If you want something that is as light as a Neo with the fit and feel, and really that is, when you're talking about refinement, that is the most refined football boot currently in existence. In that if you look at it, the one that's available now versus what was available in 2010, everything's effectively changed, but it's still the exact same concept.
Yeah.
And that's something we've never really seen before, which is super cool. So for me, Neo has to be on that list. And then Alpha, like everything about Alpha is pretty much, I hate to say it, it's as good as F50 Elite, which is a football boot that I really, really do like. But if I'm given the choice between them, just from a fit and comfort perspective alone, not say that the F50s are uncomfortable, but that there's nothing wrong with that boot. It's a very difficult one to criticize.
I agree. And I know it's like, I don't want to call it the best speed boot I've ever worn, because that's also very, it's also tied to nostalgia and feelings at the time and all that stuff. But it has to be from like an objective point of view. I have to point at it as one of the best speed boots. That it does so many things right. All the components are there, right? So, for me, it's hard to not have it as the I love playing in it. It's always in my match day bag, and I think all the elements are there. Soft upper, great fit, super good lockdown. That zero glide liner is amazing. Really good snap on the tooling. Stud shape could be better, but that's kind of it for me. But fair. What about the Razer then? Where's that? Because
Razer's excellent.
Yeah.
But I think so. For me, Mercs,
yeah,
Messi, both Mizunos is for
Ultra.
and the Puma Ultras.
Yeah.
So that would be my elite 5, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And I think everything else is very, very good, but I would have a hard time replacing any of them with those 5 that we just talked about. So Razer is, somebody pointed this out in the comment section as well, actually a great comparison to Scudetta in a lot of ways.
Yes.
In terms of like materials used and how they're broken down throughout the upper. I think Razer actually maybe gains a couple points in terms of having a little bit more, for me at least, a slightly more aggressive feel to the sole plate. Certainly the stud pattern is going to provide tons and tons of bite. I think they're very comfortable football boots for anyone that's had the opportunity or bravery to try them on, I should say, when it comes to Skechers. And they might actually blip the Scudetta in terms of weight, which I think was one of the more surprising. The Scudetta is not a heavy football boot, but it's up 10 to 20 grams depending on which speed boot you want to compare it to. Which again, for a lot of people doesn't really matter. But when you're talking about the best of the best, I think it applies as far as fair criticism is concerned.
And I'm gonna say here, if you have wide boots, wide feet, this might just have to be very, very high up your list because it is one of the boots that I feel would fit wide feet the best alongside the Alphas, which is also great for wide feet. I mean, it's built for people with wide flat feet, so you know that's why I feel the Razer really also kind of deserves to be on the list and is interchangeable, yes, with the Scudetta in many ways, the way it's constructed, what it does. It's a very solid football boot. I just happen to like the feel in the Scudetta a bit more, personally.
Which I would agree with that as well. I like the slightly more, the Scudetta is a less structured boot compared to the Razer. Yeah.
And more snug for me, which with my slim foot, I like. And that's just a question, we don't have to talk for ages about it. But are we going back to like 2014? The Scudetta is obviously an F50 reincarnation in many ways. This screams Vapor 10 with that Taitian upper. I mean, F50 is back. Predator's back with the tongue of, it didn't have a tongue in 14J, but you know what I mean? Like, are we back?
We're as close to it as we've been in 10 years. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. Adidas is a brand that I look at right now, and I think to myself, they're probably in the best state in terms of popularity that I've seen pretty much since, I would say since we both started doing this, to be honest with you. Maybe you've been doing it a little longer than me. 2010 was pretty big for them.
Yeah, it was.
But
was.
Since 2010, this is probably the best year I think Adidas has had in terms of not just popularity of product, but I would say quality of product across the board.
Across the board, yeah, I agree.
I
think
really
2020 was also big for them, right? The Copa was big. Pred Mutator came out and really, and the X was, the Ghoster wasn't the best.
I just think, Pred Mutator there was a lot of hype around it, but I feel like that hype dropped off.
Absolutely. And then when the speed flows came in and the hype rose, we also got the senses, which kind of sucked, right? So I agree. It's not unfair to say that. It's about nuance and all that stuff, but it's not unfair to say that it's one of the best years across the board that we've had for Adi. And it's just like things are circular, right? Now we've been trending towards textile-based boots for a while. Alphas, it's kind of the only classic synthetic boot that's out there, and it's also textile based. So for them to go back, Skechers and Sokito, to go back to the traditional synthetics, if you can call it that, is also refreshing, and it seems there is a market for that out there. So it's interesting.
I think there's something to be said about nostalgia. I think 2024 has been the year of nostalgia from Adidas in a lot of ways.
Oh, yes.
And that they have definitely targeted football boot fans.
Yes.
Yes. And they've gone back, whether it's colorway, whether it's the name, whether it's the styling. They've done a lot of things to try to look back into their history and give us the boots that we have such fond memories of, but in ways that are very positive. Because I think there's a lot of football boots we look back on, have very positive memories on. And if we actually wore them now, we'd probably be like, oh, this is not so good. I just think of like a synthetic 2010 F50 Addy Zero.
Yeah, it's not great.
Put that on.
It's not great.
Put that on your foot now. Yeah, it's super light, and that's crazy. But
brutal. But mate,
it feels
brutal.
like you're wearing thin, hard plastic.
Yeah, it's not great. I'll be honest.
Right.
And
right. And you could say the same about pretty much all Mercurials leading up to Vapor 8.
Oh,
Because they were all like, oh, wow, we wore these on purpose. That's interesting, right? But having said that, I think it's very cool. And Adidas has obviously such a huge opportunity with it. Nike would as well. Puma to a certain extent. If they went back on some of these technologies that were cutting edge at the time and effectively reinvented them, bringing them into 2024, 2025, whatever it might be, it's exactly what the Scudetta is. I think there's huge opportunity for that. I just made a TikTok video pretty recently talking about the Power Pulse system in the Preds, where it was the weight in the absolute, and then in the Power Swerve, it was the sand tungsten.
Powder,
Like that is something, obviously we got the literal 2 gram weight in the Predator Edge, which was a complete disappointment. But I think if they went with that concept that once upon a time, effective or not, because we can't really say that ever made your shot more powerful.
Absolutely.
But I think a modern day version of that concept would be so cool and would get people very excited.
Carbon, right?
Carbon.
They brought carbon back. They only refined it, and now it's actually the snappiest carbon plate you'll ever see, right? The most responsive thing known to man, right? so that I agree. It could be fun to see, and bring back the Hypervenom Phantom, bring back that variation of Nike skin, refine it, give it the lockdown that it never had, and
Yeah, if technology has advanced as much as these brands would like us to believe that it has, then surely you can go back and bring back these old favorites and fix the flaws.
Yeah. And that's what I think they should do. And we will take 10% per boot. I'm just saying it out loud now, so it has been established in the bootosphere that everyone knows Jay and Josh are entitled to 10% each, by the way. Each. Okay. So
Jay's like, I'm not splitting anything.
Each. And I think that's a good way to round off. It's very interesting to hear what people think, obviously, about the Scudetta, about the whole speed boot race. Like, where are we? What's the top 5? But also, on the whole, circular thing, are we back to 2014 in some way? Are we not? How are we progressing? Leave us your thoughts in the comment section right down below. If you haven't subscribed to the Boot Nerds podcast already, you should totally do so. We might be back sooner than you think. We might not. It's always a little bit of a surprise when we come back. And of course, also, if you want to just see us on the regular, subscribe to Unisport and SR4U, and you should be golden. Josh, any last words before we end this?
No, but I would like, if not many people probably made it this far, but if you are still watching, I'm just genuinely curious. For $200 is the Sokito Scudetta. Man, it's kind of a tongue twister, is it not?
Yeah.
I had a lot of outtakes of me saying the name incorrectly when I was making the video, but for $200, are you genuinely considering this, or is it no way on your radar?
And if you're not, why?
Why? Yes, the why is super important.
Because is it brand awareness that's just like, it's 200 euros, it's cheap. You guys say it's good, but I don't know the brand. I've never heard of it.
And the reason why I asked that, Jay, is like you were once a kid as well. Like you can't tell me that you weren't influenced by Ronaldo wearing a Mercurial.
Of course.
Like I wanted to wear Vapors because Ronaldo wore them, even though they made my feet bleed.
The Mercs will always be special, right? And, they'll have to make a really crappy Mercurial for me not to like it. That's just the name of the game. And for Sokito to come in, it's a gamble. It's going to be the biggest struggle ever, just like we saw with Skechers. They make great products, but people are just skeptical because either they don't know them or the brand name is just not associated with anything good. Right?
It's the great unknown.
Just, people look at I've worn these for a couple of matches now, and people look at my feet and go like, what are they? And I'm like, oh, they're the new speed boots. Okay, but they don't like. It's not Nike, is it? So yeah, I'm a Nike player. So Okay, so where are the materials? I mean, it's fine. We just, yeah. Good question. Good question. Leave that in the comment section right down below. And the reason I have to go now is because my kid is waiting for me in kindergarten. Oh. So that's where we are.
It always keep Jay's children waiting.
That is the kid has really been interrupting the podcast for a while, but it is what it is. It's the beauty of life, eh? Lovely kid.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
But good talking to you, my friend. Good talking to everyone out there. Let's keep talking in the comments. And with those words, I've been JayMike, and I approve this message.
Thanks for watching.
Later, guys.